Hello and welcome to the Healing Insight Podcast, episode 61, with me, Sarah Hunt.
And me, Jez Hunt.
Hello, everybody. Here we are again. Hello, Jay. How are you?
Hello,
How's
I am
things in
very
your
well.
neck of the woods?
Oh, I was talking over you as well. I'm very well,
Well,
thank you.
I didn't realise my phone had got a noise on it still. There
Oh,
we go. Turned it off
oh,
now.
rookie mistake, not turning your phone off.
Oh, very poor. Sorry, my bad, as they say these days. My bad. Um, yeah, now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, what were we doing today? The role of creativity and healing.
Yes,
That was your thing.
yes.
So I'm going to pass it over to you because I think that's quite an interesting topic. And I'd like to hear your perception of it.
Ooh, I hadn't given it much thought other than the title, which is
Why did you come up with the title? What brought you to that?
well, just some of the some of the posts I've been doing, and some of the things that I've been doing myself in terms of mindfulness have been creative. So be it painting, be it playing the guitar, being it going for walks, being out in nature, being in trees, as in being in a woods, not in trees, as in climbing trees so much anymore, um, and just doing those things that switch off the the mind part of it, being in our heads, the thinking about stuff and the worrying about stuff, and just doing stuff that pulls you into the moment and allows you to express yourself in whatever way you want. There's no right or wrong. Painting, for example, even if you just splodge paint on a canvas, then if that's what you feel like in that moment, that's right for you. And just basically it's the cathartic effect, the healing effect that I found by doing those things and having a structure to doing those things. In that, make sure I do something every day, even if it's just going for a walk, that allows me to switch off, to switch my head off, to just allow me to be in the moment, for me is a significantly important part of my healing journey, in some ways as much as doing actual energy healing and specific healing work on myself. So for me, it was just the fact that I've been doing some posts on some of the paintings I've done in the past, and adding a bit of thought behind it to give a life lesson. I like connecting things to create metaphors and stories, as you know, and as the
Mm,
listeners have experienced on various podcasts in the past. But just using creativity in a way that can have a healing um, outcome, or contribute towards the healing that we need. So,
yeah, I think it's really important because when we're doing something creative that we really love, it immediately takes us into our heart center.
yeah,
And that then that in itself is very healing, isn't it? Because it takes away the stress that we might be experiencing. It just gives us that moment in the moment, as you say, where all we're aware of is what's in that moment, and we're not thinking ahead of what do I need to do for dinner. Oh, I need to add that to my shopping list. This is, I'm going out to meet my mates tonight. What am I going to wear? What time are we meeting? All that stuff stops because you pull yourself into the moment and you're not thinking or worried about anything else. And I think it is like you say, it's a really important thing to do. And I get out for a walk, at least one walk every day, usually two, because Charlie expects two.
Yeah.
Um, but but I sometimes if I'm feeling a bit wound up, something's upset me or whatever, then I'll go out in the garden and um we do a bit of work in the garden, a bit of weeding and what have you. Or if it's summertime and it's sunny, then I'll just sit a chair out there and just go and shut my eyes, have 40 winks, as I told my the other day. I said, Annie, why are your eyes closed? Because I'm having 40 winks. 40 winks? You mean you've got to wink 40 times? I no, I'm just shutting my eyes, count up to 40. That's what Grandad used to tell me.
Yeah.
So,
40 used to
sorry,
take
I
him a long
digress.
time, didn't it?
Yeah. Um, but I try and find something as well, if I'm a bit wound up about something, or something's going on and I'm not quite sure how to handle it or how to deal with it, then I'll just take myself off and do something that drops me back into my heart and helps me to be in the moment again, because then you deal with things from a responsive way rather than a reactive way. And so you're then not allowing more stuff to be triggered, um, and upset you even more. So it's actually it's healing you on some level.
Yeah.
Whenever you're in the moment, it just helps you to let go, doesn't it? I think that's what I'm trying to say in a roundabout kind of way. I think I got there. It's about allowing yourself to let go of stuff.
Yeah. It's also about shifting your vibration. So,
Yeah,
for example, if you want calm and peace and just be in the moment, you might want to go and do some gardening or go for a quiet walk in nature. But other times you might want to lift your vibration. So you might do that by music or
that's
dance
music.
or
Yeah.
something like that gets you moving and gets you excited and gets you happy and brings your energy up. So which can then, as you said, it can then help you to cope with, deal with, respond to rather than react to the things that are coming up. So I think it's just that thing that creativity can play out in so many different ways. It could be cross stitch for you. It could be crocheting. It could be, I don't know, painting stones, gratitude stones. It could be decoupage. It could be, there's so many different ways, colouring in something even, crosswords. I don't know, anything that just is something different that allows you to become mindful and just be in the moment for some reason at whatever ever level of vibration you want to be at. You don't have to go out dancing all the time. I mean, I will
Mm.
dance in the kitchen if I want to, but I don't do it all the time. And there are other times when I'll just sit quietly and meditate because that's how I feel I want to be. And that's what I feel is right for me in that moment. Well, I think why this came up for me as a topic, I think it's because that a lot of the people I see, whether they're posts and things I read of other people or even clients that I'm working with, quite often we get hung up in doing, 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 and not being, being, and being. Because it's not just about doing, we have to be,
Yeah, and that's why we're called human beings.
not human doings.
It's not human doings. Yeah,
That
because
sounds wrong.
we are meant to be. And when we be, we're in the moment. And when we're in the moment, we're in our heart.
Yeah.
And when we're in our heart, we're doing what we love doing, and we're expressing ourselves through the different things that we use to help ourselves to be. I think that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it is really important for all of us to learn to be more. And if we're doing, then we might be distracting ourselves from ourselves. And as humans, there are certain things that we do need to do every day, but we also need to make time to be, to allow ourselves to be. Um and like you say, that might be that walk in park or the woods, or it might be painting some stones or painting a canvas, or it might be doing a tapestry or playing an instrument or playing football or playing rugby or whatever it is that you really enjoy. Because when you really enjoy something, firstly, it lifts your vibration, it lifts your energy, it makes you feel good. Um, and secondly, it takes you into the moment. And when you're in the moment, you're in your heart. And that's what we're meant to be. That's how we're meant to be. We're meant to be much more in our hearts than we are in our heads. And um, from very small children, I think we're programmed to be in our heads instead of in our hearts. And it's really important to be in our hearts. And, it's something that we have to become aware of as well. I have my moments when I'm in my head. Um, and I have to stop and think, hang on a minute, Sarah, drop back into your heart. Drop back into your heart. It's okay. Um, because it's so easy in this busy world. When you're looking at what's going on around you all the time instead of feeling into how you're feeling and what you need, it's so easy to find yourself doing all the time.
Yeah.
And and we can't just do all the time. We need to, and when we're connecting with our true authentic self. We're allowing ourselves to be our true authentic self, and we're allowing ourselves to express ourselves in whatever way that we need to express ourselves in that moment.
Yeah. Look at children. They are in creative mode all the time. Young children, they're in creative mode all the
Mm,
time. They're playing, they're doing makeup, they're imagining tea parties, and I don't know, whatever it is. They're playing and being creative the whole time. And then
mm,
as we grow up, like you say, we're programmed as children as we go through schooling and what have you. And creativity is, if you look at society, artists and things nowadays, it's, oh, you don't want to go down the art route. It's a struggle to be an artist and earn a living. It's a struggle to whereas if you go and get a proper job in air quotes and go and work in a factory or go and work in an office block for somebody else, then that's a proper job. And yet,
mm.
so society pushes us away from the creative element. And it doesn't mean that there aren't artists that make money. Of course there are, but the it's that sort of societal, well, an artist isn't going to ever make any money, whereas
But
what we,
but then that comes back to what's important in life, doesn't it? And what you perceive to be success. And I'm not saying that you want to be an artist and not making and not bringing in any money, because obviously in this day and age and this world that we live in at this current time, we need money to be able to pay our bills and feed ourselves, etc. But it comes back to how people perceive success, doesn't it? And abundance.
yeah,
And and abundance is more than money. It's having everything you need in all areas of your life. And and it's also linked into understanding that you are much more than your body, and that you can manifest what you want, and we manifest best when we're doing what we love.
yeah, we manifest best when we're being creative.
Yeah,
Funnily enough,
absolutely. We're meant to be creative. Human beings are not only meant to be, they are meant to be creative as well. We are creative beings, and creativity takes many different forms.
yeah,
And I think, I grew up always thinking that being creative was um, making things out of old toilet rolls and what have you, a
sticky
bit like
back
Blue Peter
plastic.
used to do, sticky back plastic, or being able to paint pictures or um, do various different things. But actually, creativity is so much more than that. it's putting your own stamp on something, isn't it? It's um, your own way of doing things, your own, say mark, because it's not really a mark, but it's your own interpretation. Thank you very much. That was the word I was looking for. It's your own interpretation of something, isn't it? And that, um, if we look at, just for example, your paintings and my paintings, your paintings are much more sort of very definite featured things like animals, maybe some scenery, whereas mine are much more angels and my perception of an angel, and different things that go with that. But when I'm painting, it's to do with the energy of it and the energy it's giving off. So I'm not saying yours isn't, but because I know it is on some level, but it but but my creative paintings are just as important as your creative paintings, are just as important as my grandchildren's creative paintings, um, as anybody else's creative paintings, because it's come from the heart. If
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yeah. My interpretation of a Westie, and I'm saying that only because I can see the picture of Jester behind you on the wall as we're doing this podcast, but that's just my interpretation of. Um, in terms of if we're looking at detail, then there are artists out there who are way more detailed than I am and would produce a much more lifelike, if you would, to connect it to a photograph, their paintings would look more like a photograph than a painting. Mine does not look like a photograph. It's an interpretation of, but it does look like Jester when you look at it. So,
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah.
um, so yeah, I think, I feel, well, no, I do, I feel that people shy away from creativity as adults. So yes, we're programmed out of it, but I think that people don't explore their creative side as much as they could. And the sad thing about that, if we don't, is that that can help relieve and release a lot of stuff that we hold on to. So it helps with mental wellness, it helps with our general well-being, it helps with our mindfulness, it helps with being happier in life generally. And it, like you say, it doesn't have to be anything, as adults, how many of us actually go and play with our children when they're young and go and play with them and let them lead the play?
Mm,
How many of us as adults try and maneuver the play in a way that we feel, rather than just actually, even if they're only two or three, playing in a sandpit, allowing them to tell us what to do and them direct the play? Because even just doing that takes us back and just gives us that release of letting go of control, letting go of, and just enjoying that moment in the moment with our children.
mm,
I can think of times when I've done that, and I can also think of times when I've sort of said, "Oh no, Robbie, let's not do it like that. Let's do it like this." But actually, is that right? Is it wrong? I don't know. But there are other ways of looking at it, and there are other ways of being creative. And it's not about us directing necessarily. Sometimes it's just about us allowing. So, for
yeah.
example, some of my paintings, some of them I start with intention. So the one I did of Jester, it was, I am painting a picture of Jester. So how am I going to do that? Looking at photographs, working it out with pencil, and then starting with colour. Sometimes I feel like getting a blank canvas, I get a load of different coloured paints out, and I don't have no intention about what's going to come out. And it is,
That's the
sometimes
way
it
I
will
tend to work.
sometimes it'll turn into a scene, sometimes it'll just be some sort of what people would regard as modern art, just sort of splodges and colours, and it doesn't matter. What matters is that in that moment, that's how I felt like I expressing myself.
Mm,
And that's what I feel is important, and in a lot of people's lives missing. or maybe not missing completely, but maybe we could all do a bit more in terms of allowing us to be ourselves, to be creative, to just let go of some of the, even if it is just for 5 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, just letting go of the thoughts and the stresses and the worries and the of day-to-day life, and actually be, rather than just going through the motions of, well, this is what I have to do, this is life, this is what my life is. Because our life is what we choose to make it, or how we choose to perceive it.
Mm.
And just being creative for me is, as I say, it's as an important part of my healing as doing healing on myself is.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because it's about self-expression, isn't it? And a lot of the time we don't. It's difficult, depending on what you're doing. It can be difficult to express yourself because there are certain guidelines that you've got to stick to, or ways of doing things, or what have you. And so taking yourself outside of that might feel quite uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's not to say that you shouldn't be creative in everything you do, because if you're heart led, if you're in your heart, you will be creative with everything that you do
Yeah.
in some way.
So if I
And
look at,
that's really what we need to be aiming for, is being creative with everything that we do.
yeah, and if I look at the way I coach, then I don't have a prescribed set of lessons or sessions that we're going to do, and a pre-written set of questions that I'm going to ask, and it's all going to magically sort you out. It's all done from the heart in the moment, and I creatively come up with the question that I ask or the thing that I say, because I'm in my heart and I'm responding to what the client is saying, doing, how they're acting in front of me. So
But that can be taken into any role that
yes,
anybody
yeah, yeah,
is in,
absolutely.
you know.
That's what I mean.
And
It's
I think that's important. And you know, we're being encouraged to be much more heart centered. The way the energies are shifting on the planet, it's all about us coming into our hearts, and and being much more heart centered. And I'm hearing it from people as well, that people I didn't expect to hear those kind of comments coming from, or it's, where they're saying to me, "Oh yeah, we're trying to be much more heart centered at work. We're looking at things from a more heart centered place." And it's like, that's really interesting that people are saying that, because that's my understanding of where we need to be going, so that everything's coming from the heart, because then we are working with our truth. We're in our authentic space, and we're being creative, and that those are the sort of key things. And we're working with the energies of love, and loving what we do, and loving how we do things, and that is healing in itself, just by working with those energies.
yeah,
That's simple.
yeah. I mean, adding your interpretation. So it doesn't matter what job you're doing, whether you're self-employed, whether you're working for a company, adding your interpretation of what a job role means to you is being creative.
Mm.
Doesn't mean you won't work without guidelines. It doesn't mean you won't, yes, there are things you're going to be allowed to do and things you're not going to be allowed to do, but that doesn't stop you being creative in what you do. You know, if you've got to write an email for someone, then be creative. You don't have to necessarily use a template unless you're told that's the template you have to use for this. It depends what your job is, of course, but then there
Mm.
are other things you could be creative. You could be creative in how you the things you put on your desk and how you create your work environment to sit at. That could be creative for you. You could
Mm.
put your interpretation on that, for example. That there's lots of things that we can do to be creative.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to necessarily be and all singing, all dancing, a huge wall mural or something that everybody sees, although it might be.
No.
It might just be nothing more than a bit of creative writing in a journal that nobody else ever sees. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. That doesn't, yeah, absolutely. It's just allowing ourselves to be creative, isn't it? In whatever form feels right in that moment.
Yeah, and just having those moments where we can express ourselves without fear of judgment, without fear of criticism or anything else, and we can just express ourselves and be truly ourselves and how we feel in that moment. And if that's, what's the phrase, dance like nobody's watching. If you want to go and
Yeah.
dance in the sitting room or in the kitchen or wherever it is that you like dancing, and just going for it with nobody watching and just enjoy yourself and just feel that in that moment, that's a good thing. It doesn't mean you have to go out and find a disco and go dancing. Just
Mm.
allow yourself to express yourself in the way that suits you. And if you really are worried about what other people think, then do things on your own to begin with. Don't do things with you don't have to go dancing or painting with somebody else. You don't have to show paintings or creative writing. You don't have to show anybody anything. But don't use that as an excuse not to do it.
Mm.
Finding something to be creative and allow yourself to express yourself completely, with abandonment almost, but in a safe environment, even if it is just you in your room on your own in that moment. It's so healing and rewarding by doing that.
Yeah, and what you're doing as well is giving yourself time, aren't you? You're looking after you.
Yeah,
And it's very easy in this busy world that we live in to forget that actually looking after you is really important. It's an important part of being human. And if we don't look after ourselves, then we're not able to really offer support to others.
yeah,
And I think, that's something that I've had to really learn over the years. And if I look back, um, so years ago, I put so much effort into work and making sure the kids were okay that sometimes I really forgot about myself. And it was when I changed things and started doing things for myself that that made a big difference to me, because I was happier with myself because I wasn't the one that was at the bottom of the pile all of the time. And I think that's, being creative is part of looking after yourself and making sure that you have a sense of well-being yourself, doesn't it?
yeah. How can you give the best of yourself to someone else if you can't give the best of you to you?
Mm.
We need to make sure that we're okay, and it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to have down days and to feel not so good, but sometimes using something creative can help raise your vibration, can help bring that mood back up again.
Mm.
Making sure that you're okay helps you be okay with other people and be able to be supportive and helpful in whatever way that is, whether you're a parent or friend or students or whatever it might be.
Mm.
you know so yeah, it is about, it's about making sure that we're okay. And we've talked about this in the previous podcast. It's not being selfish, it's being selfless. It's putting yourself first in that, making sure that you're okay to be able to support others in the way that you want to or need to support others.
Mm.
Oh, another exciting one.
Interesting, isn't it? Interesting indeed. It's always good to explore these things because it's just a reminder, isn't it, that there's so many things that you can do that are healing, that are loving towards yourself,
Yeah,
because the most important thing we can learn to do is love ourselves unconditionally. And when we can love ourselves unconditionally, then it's a lot easier. to be non-judgmental of others, to be loving towards others and love them unconditionally as well. That doesn't mean to say that we can allow people to walk over us or push the boundaries too far, but whatever experiences we have, the most important thing is love. And even if it's an experience where something is not as, or someone is not as kind as they might be, the most important thing we can do is love them. But we can't do that fully unless we love ourselves. And to be able to love ourselves, we need to look after ourselves and to recognize that we're important too. And when we're important too, then being creative is an important part of our well-being.
Absolutely. In the words of the Beatles, all you need is love.
All you need is love, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Unconditional love.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that's a good place to
Well,
stop today.
I think it is. I think yeah, an interesting subject again. And hopefully that's given the listeners some ideas, some thoughts about getting creative. And do let us know what you get creative with, and remember the importance of allowing yourself to be, of loving yourself, and being kind to yourself, as that will help to keep your vibration high, to keep your energy high, to keep your mood high, and to keep everything in balance for you.
Absolutely. Excellent.
Super duper. Wow. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.